President of Want Leverage Communications, and I'm here for another edition of PR Patter, my weekly series of chats with the amazing people from across my marketing and public relations network. If you're interested in learning more about raising your executive visibility on LinkedIn, go to my website, wantleverage.com, and download our free tip sheet, Make Your C-Suite Stand Out on LinkedIn. So today I am so thrilled to welcome my special guest, Julie Ilkovich. She and I met many years ago when we were both members of New York Women in Communications. She's still active in the organization, and she's an award-winning content marketing expert and entrepreneur. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Also, Julie.
This is like the Julie show today. Julie is co-founder and managing partner of Masthead Media Company, a full-service content marketing agency. And she's also a career expert and the host and executive producer of the Women Heard podcast. Julie honed her expertise through roles at Warner Brothers, where she worked on shows like Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, and The Vampire Diaries, and Hearst. Her passion for supporting and elevating women led her to become the co-founder and executive director of the Women in Content Marketing Awards. Oh, I love that, Julie. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
She's a graduate of the Boston University College of Communication and a proud recipient, wait till you hear this, of a New York Women in Communications Wiki Award, which celebrates the career achievements of rising stars in communications. Just such a great background. And I mean, you're so well suited to talk about today's topic, which is why content marketing is more important than ever, than ever before. And this has a lot to do with the change in search. So, Julie, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about why the current search environment has been elevating the importance of content marketing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and talking to you. So like Julie said, I am a co-founder of Masthead, and we are a content marketing agency. So we've been following the landscape of content marketing for well over a decade now, and it has changed a lot. And so what's happening now is essentially like exactly what you said. Search is changing. So one of the key factors of content marketing and the purposes of content marketing is that you are trying to engage a new audience through search, right? So there's a lot of ways you're creating content, and maybe your content marketing is content you're creating for a newsletter, but a lot of what we're doing in this industry is creating content, and then it's marketing because you're trying to bring in a new audience through search, and SEO is a very large component of content marketing. So search is changing, and this is due to many, many, many things. Google has talked about rolling out SGE. Like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? That's what we're talking about. That's a whole other podcast episode. But search is evolving, and no matter what happens with Google, with other search, what is happening is that because of AI and because it is just a different world in terms of how content is created, and it's easy to create content, and you can use ChatGPT to create content. And so there's an influx of content. Like, there's just so much content on the internet, and there are just articles upon articles. And as we've seen happen, there are websites that have been basically created by robots to game this, or figure out search. What's happening now is that, and we're already seeing it, everyone's seeing it, this is not the future, this is the present. Search is emphasizing new things in content. So yes, your content still needs to be relevant, but it needs to be human. It needs to have a perspective. So a lot of what we've been talking about as the Google algorithm changes is that they're going to focus on perspectives, because what's happening is the search engines have realized they don't need to send you to the content, right? So they don't need to send you to the content. You search something in Google, and you'll notice a lot of that information is on the Google search. So you don't have to get sent out, and oftentimes there'll be like a credit, in terms of where that information came from, but you can get it right there. So you'll search for, where's the best place to get a cup of coffee or whatever it is. It's all on the search page. So what brands are going to have to do is create content not just that people are looking for, but where they are truly the experts and have a unique perspective. So that's where content marketing is going. So actually, the great news for companies like us and real content marketing creators who are trying to create good content is there's going to be an emphasis on good content, editorial content. I come from a magazine background. My company was founded in creating magazine style, and now we just say truly editorial, high quality content. And that's going to be what works. So you're going to see that the content that shows up in search is like, you have a unique perspective. You are the expert. So for example, you know, if you own a company and you're trying to market your product, let's say you own a baby company and you're trying to market your baby products, you're going to want your baby experts, your internal people creating the actual product, the people who are the experts, your people doing the research. That's who you're going to be wanting contributing to content, or that data that they're finding, whether they're writing it or not, is who, like, what needs to be in that content. And so essentially, just to go back to the question, it's like, because of like the content glut is what we call it, it's just that you need to really differentiate yourself. And so in terms of content marketing strategy, yes, we're going to focus on search, and there's all new things to look at search and lots of new things, but quality and human touch matters, which is great. It's not a bad thing. It's maybe more expensive to create. It takes more work, but maybe you can create less content that's higher quality. That's an approach. So that's kind of where things are going right now.
How does AI play into this, Julie?
AI plays into everything. Where does it not? Where does it not? I know. Do you know that quote that everyone's saying now? It's like, AI isn't going to take your job, but a person who understands how to use AI is going to take your job. I think that applies here as well. So there's many places like that it applies. So AI search, I mean, that's basically what's happening, is search is getting smarter, and new tools are influencing search. The AI content creation. So like, I love AI. I love ChatGPT. I use it all the time. I am not of the school of belief, though, that AI can write amazing content.
No.
It needs a human touch. And not only does it need a human touch because of how it reads or whatever, it needs a human touch because now AI search is going to be looking at it and saying, did a human write this? And it's going to know, right? Smarter than any of us in terms of that. So I think that is, where AI is playing into all this, is that people are using AI to create content. It's kind of messing up the search game, and now we have changed essentially everything about it. But I think, on the bright side, and in terms of, I'd like to be an advocate for AI because I think it should make our lives easier. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting ways AI is going to play, or is already playing into all of our jobs, but content marketing from a just like workflow perspective, there are tools that make it easier, to create calendars and check your strategies and align things and put dates on things. Like, there's going to be a lot of streamlining through AI, but I also think the big question that brands are asking, and I would say the answer is no, is what we just both said, is like, should I be using AI to write our content? I get that question already from clients. I get it from even media companies. I mean, we're seeing them trying AI. It has not, no one's had success, and people have had the opposite of success.
It's got to be brand right and, customized to suit your brand. I mean, every brand has a certain vernacular that they're using to describe their products and services. These are real subtleties, but they're really important.
Absolutely. And even, for example, with ChatGPT, you can create like insular environments where you could upload your style guide and you can upload past content. And so we've just been playing around with everything and saying, like, even if you give AI all the information that they would need, style guide, what your words are, it is not there. So you do need, every brand is special, and not only what makes it special is how, its individual voice and tone, but also now search is going to determine that you need that voice and tone to have your brand elevated in search. So absolutely, like it's definitely not there.
So, excuse me, do you disclose to clients that you're using AI tools? This has been debated among PR people. How much does an agency disclose that they're using AI in their work? Will that diminish their value in the minds of their clients? It's sort of up for debate.
And actually, and I hope it's okay I say this, that on May 8th, for the Women in Content Marketing Awards, we're going to be having a event with our lawyer, Sharon Torek, who's an amazing innovator in the space of like ethical and legal issues around using AI in content. So if you go to Women in Content Marketing or my LinkedIn, which will get tagged, like we're going to have an event specifically talking about what language should you put in your contracts. We've been discussing this, and where we're landing is yes to some AI language that essentially discloses, especially when it comes to SEO and analytics, because those are places that we're using AI just to make things easier. There's no reason a person has to do some of those tasks anymore. It also can be cheaper for the client if like we don't physically have to pull the numbers, we can just put them through AI. Obviously, there's a lot of security issues, so making sure we're keeping, that's the whole issue, keeping things secure. Don't put that stuff just into any AI tool, because most of them are not protecting your data. Right. But we've been talking about what that language is going to be, and I think where we're landing is to include some language and kind of specify that the AI tools we're using are secure and for internal use, like are internal use only, but also that they're not creating like original content. So I think yes is where we're going, but what we're doing with AI, I don't think is really going to be questioned by clients. I can see if you were from a PR perspective using AI because what I think AI is great for in the writing is like pure marketing content, pure, like, I'm going to put all this information. Can you regurgitate it in a different way over and over again? But we will disclose that the way we're using AI is not affecting essentially the end product or anything like the audience is seeing. So it's a little easier for us to not have a client question that, where I can see like, but I'm sure in the PR space, you guys are using AI for all kinds of cool things.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. As starter copy, I'll call it.
Yes.
To get to, first of all, to do research, because so much of my work is research based. So it really saves an awful lot of time by, using Chat GPT to get that research right in front of you in like a minute, not even a minute, right? It's amazing. And if, for writer's block, I've been using it too. Sometimes, I write like as you do, I write all day long. And sometimes you just like, you just
100%.
You can't get past yourself. So I do use it for that. But I was curious. Thank you for answering that. I was curious about the legal ramifications, and I'm going to definitely join that webinar. That would be great. I'd love to hear it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So say again where people can find it.
So if you go to womenincontentmarketing.com or wicmas.com, WICMAS, we have an events section, or if you want to find me on LinkedIn, Julie Livingston Ilkovich, I'm posting about it, or the Women in Content Marketing Awards on LinkedIn. But the event is on May 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I think essentially, to your question, it is like the biggest question mark, and definitely we are like erring on the side of caution for sure. But it's just moving so fast. Like all of us are going to have to figure this out. To your point, we're going to have to put it in our contracts. It's also like a big question, and I know in all media spaces this is a thing. Like we work with a lot of contractors, so we're having to say, when can you use AI? When can you not use AI? Because it's kind of, there's now a world where like we could be hiring someone and they could be using Chat GPT to write it. It wouldn't go over that well because we would probably be able to tell, but we have been using different AI tools to see if AI is writing content because we're using contractors. So there's a lot of, gray area, which we'll talk about next week, but it's the wild, wild west. It's like the beginning of the internet again, I feel like.
It is. It's really turning everything upside down, and we're going to get there, but it still is the wild, wild west to a certain extent, for sure. Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about the range of content that's out there right now for companies to consider beyond, advertorials, newsletters, things like that?
Absolutely. So, right. So there's all the written content. There's, one thing that is just transforming is visual content. And I would say, even as like not to call myself an old person, but a traditional media person, I have had to learn so much about video content, because I think of video content, especially in the branded space, as high quality, high produced. You bring in a crew, it's very expensive, it's an ad. And what I have had to learn is it's just transformed, because there is so much user-generated content. There's different content to license. And so it really is a different world. And what I have been working on myself, but also with clients, is to rethink what video content means. Like, is it an influencer created or user-generated? It doesn't even have to be an influencer video. Like, people also, I think we all have just been trained to care a little, this sounds bad, but I don't mean it negatively, to care a little bit less about quality. In terms of a video shot on an iPhone, people aren't like, oh my God, that's disgusting, like you should have made it, because that's what
but
we're seeing all the
it's
time.
also so authentic and real.
Yes.
It carries a lot of credence.
Absolutely. Totally. It's very authentic. It's a great point. So that's one way I'd say, like, the landscape is transforming, and that we're just kind of changing how we're thinking about it, changing how budgets are looked at. Like, you can create multimedia content listen, AI also creates video. That's a whole other question. But like, I went to, someone who I work with, like in peer groups of agencies, I was asking them about video agencies, and they're kind of like, why wouldn't you create content using AI? So I was like, oh yeah, you can create content. So that's another option that we have. Also, same with visual photos. Like, there's just so much licensing, user generated. That's always kind of been the case. But again, I think we're getting very comfortable. And then audio. I mean, we're here talking at a podcast and a video, but audio also, and AI, to me, AI has just transformed podcasting. Like, you can create a podcast so easily with AI. You can have it edited. Like, there's just so much. And so that's another way of content marketing. I mean, for sure. And I don't want to like say there is a place for very high quality podcasts, video, everything that are edited, that have producers. But I also think it's just an exciting time that we can be creating multimedia content. Everyone can be doing it to some extent. I mean, I shouldn't say everyone. It does take work and time and thinking and planning and editorializing. But I think that's like a pretty exciting time, that especially for podcasts, you can have like podcasts edited through AI as well. So it's not perfect, but I think it's just a transformation, I would say, in terms of access and thinking about it. And I think how I'm looking at it from a brand perspective is like, I don't want to say, and my business, this would not be good for my business, but I don't think it's true, everything can be user generated. But I do think that different campaigns can allow for different types of content, and we can really create different types of content at different price points. And that is just like a very exciting time for content marketing.
And user generated content is fantastic, but you need to sculpt it and shape it so that it works for a particular company or brand.
Absolutely. Everything. And again, it needs humans. Like, we are not to the point. So whether it's your in-house team creating content or an agency that creates content, you still need humans. You need a strategy. It's not just going to work doing it willy-nilly without a strategy, but there are tools that can help support content marketing strategies, which I think is really exciting.
So when companies come to you and they're newbies in the content marketing space, where is a good place for them to start?
It's a great question. I mean, one thing we're doing now, and this is new-ish, and it's just kind of crazy to even be saying this out loud, that this is where we are. So like we always, when a company would come with us, we would do an audit. Like if they didn't have any content at all, we would start from scratch and do a strategy. But typically at this point in the world, companies have content, whether they think they do or not. They've had newsletters, they've had blogs. Like one thing we're looking at now is just like your current positioning and what your positioning is going to look like. It's like future proofing is something that we're looking at. So we can look at, as these search changes happen, what is going to happen to your brand, and also what are going to be the things that you're going to be the expert in, because that's what's important now, right? So you might come to me and say, my brand does this and we want to write about this, and I can say, great, but that's going to be the content for the newsletter or social. That's not what bringing people into your audience, because you're not the experts. So when someone would come to me, what we're going to do first now is identify what is your content space. And I think the reality is these content spaces are going to get a little bit smaller, meaning brands are going to want to focus on a few places where they can really win the content game versus, maybe a previous approach of just like kind of writing about a lot of stuff that interests them. And so then from there, once we kind of audited, then it's all about strategy. And then I would also say, in terms of thinking, I mean, this is what we do all day long, but if a brand is kind of thinking about their content, you don't need to be everywhere, and you shouldn't necessarily be everywhere. That has been like since the days I worked in magazines and social media was new. I remember every brand would try to be on every social media platform, and it's like, well, you're not creating photos, so why would you be on a visual platform? So I think that's the other thing that I would encourage thinking about.
It could be very overwhelming if you're just starting to dip your toes in the water, in the content marketing water. Why would you want to be everywhere at once? I would say take it slow and pilot things. Yes.
And I would say, like, as exciting as it is and all the cool things that we can do, I also would say don't disregard just starting with good written content, because that's going to go a long way. So you have, I think maybe some people think like, oh, a blog is old school, whatever you call it. You don't have to call it a blog, but you can get so much bang for your buck or your work by creating written content and repurposing it. So that's something we always talk about, is like the life of content. It's like you create a blog. That's a social media. I mean, even like we're talking about for this podcast, like this is going to become a podcast, a video. We're going to cut it up. And so even at Masthead, for our own content that we create for our own blog, it's like, where are the 50 places this is going to live? And that is just another thing you should be thinking about as you start your content. But I think it's really right now figuring out where you're the expert, where you have the resources to be the expert, and then just having a strategy. The delicate dance of content marketing, I would say, is you need to create enough content to make an impact, but you also need to be realistic about your resources. So I think that is also the thing to figure out. Are you, if you want to be on TikTok, you have to create a lot of content. And like, do you have the resources, the person who's creating that, like who's doing the videos, what's the strategy, what's the point? And so that also is, I think, something to think about like right off the bat.
That's great. Julie, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a fantastic conversation. And where can people reach you? Is the best way on LinkedIn or through your website?
LinkedIn is a great place to reach me. So Julie Hawkeiser Ilkovich, you can see my name because it's way too long to even spell. And so like Julie said, I also host Women Heard, which is a website presented by New York Women in Communications. So you can find that on the New York Women in Communications website, or you can find it anywhere you listen to your podcast, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And then actually today, when we're recording this, the nominations for the New York Women, I have so many words and all these things. The Women in Content Marketing Awards, the nominations open today. They will be open right now. So
that's awesome.
to women in content marketing. I invite you to nominate yourself or someone you know and adore. It's a really exciting program, and we're kicking it off today.
That's great news, Julie. Thanks for sharing all that you know about content. And we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Later on.
Thank you for thinking of me and having me. This was so fun. And thank you for letting me talk about content marketing, my passion.
Okay, everyone. I'll see you next time in another installment.